Good afternoon, members, officers and viewers. Thank you very much for attending this afternoon. This scrutiny committee is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. While translating of proceedings can be provided upon request. The image and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the council. Okay. Apology, please.
Yeah, we've had apologies from councillors Baker, Westhead, Cox and Evans, from choosing Kim and from the leader.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meetings and page 3 to 6. I've asked the committee clerk to add an item. At the last meeting, we discussed the contact centre and the availability of loudspeakers to answer queries, and she's amended the minutes to this. And on the final sentence of the minutes, instead of they have, it says he has, and that's all the corrections I've got in the minutes. Does anybody else have any corrections for the minutes?
My apologies, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Linton. We've included that. Something move there, a reasonable record then, please. Councillor Jenkins, seconded. Councillor Linton.
Yes, Chair, I'm not going to raise my hand.
Thank you. Okay. Under information risk report 23-24. The committee is asked to consider the annual information risk report attached as Appendix 1 and provide comments for consideration by the Cabinet. Councillor, who's leading on this? Mr. Blazer?
Very brief. Very brief. So this is an annual report we bring through the committee. It's part of a best practice approach to information governance across the council, and not too need for the committee to actually look at the work that's going on with a variety of things, and also pose some questions and challenge that work. So as part of our continuous improvement with information governance, Mark and Tarek are part of a really good team, really, that needs organisation around information governance, and we've got a good track record around it, and also, a very open and transparent approach to how we manage information across the organisation and the challenges that some of that poses. And I think that's part of a healthy environment around information governance. So I'll hand over to Mark.
Thank you.
We're then happy to take any questions.
Thank you, please. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so as we said, we've been doing this report for a number of years. We look to refine it as best we can. As Risa said, also, we're trying to engage with members and other officers, including the Information Governance Group, in terms of scrutiny of what's happened and what we plan to do. So as Risa said, openness is a big part of that. So what I was just proposing to do, I'll just quickly go through some of the executive summary, some of the highlights of the executive summary, and obviously we're happy to take any questions from the committee after that. So first thing to mention is public services network. So that's something we need to do annually with the Cabinet Office to enable us to connect to their various systems. It's a bit of a benchmark of our kind of actual practical information security arrangements. So whilst this report strictly reports kind of April 23 to March 24, where relevant, we will include some additions from kind of this year. So in this case, in the period we're talking about, April to March, we were successful in accreditation in June 2023, and we just found out recently that we're successful in June 2024. We have had some challenges over recent years. The new finance system is a major improvement. The old system we have had for a long time, and that's given us some challenges. But the position is a lot better than it's been in the last couple of years, and credit goes to SRS colleagues and for various efforts on that. Similarly, in terms of PCI, so that's payment card industry, data security standards for handling card payments on behalf of the organisation for customers. So that compliance was achieved in September 2023. And we're now preparing for accreditation, which is due in September 2024. We're subject to reviews from Audit Wales, and during 22-23, we had a review carried out on our cybersecurity arrangements. There were 4 recommendations made, and we're making good progress against those recommendations. In terms of, I guess, one of the things that we're here for really is to give you an appreciation of the background to this. It is possible that we can be fined as an organisation with significant amounts of money. Whilst the Information Commissioner's Office, who kind of regulate this space, I've taken what you might call a slightly more pragmatic and lenient approach to councils and public sector. You know, there is that potential to have a significant fine for the organisation. And just to highlight that the ICO has proposed a fine to the Police Service of Northern Ireland, £750,000. You may be aware of a data breach in relation to a freedom of information request, where details of PSM, Police Service of Northern Ireland staff were made available on the web. And obviously, in relation to the security in Northern Ireland, that is that's kind of almost as bad as it gets, really. And I was actually just reading prior to this that without the EU regime of kind of a more lenient approach to the public sector, then the ICO would have actually proposed a fine of £5.6 million. So, that's the kind of backdrop to the kind of work we're doing. Obviously, those are the exceptions, and all the activities we're doing are trying to avoid those kind of things. So just in terms of, I mentioned about the Information Governance Group, which is this kind of strategic group for managing the risk. Some of the things we talk about are the kind of communications and awareness raising. So the combined amount of training we provided this year has been the most we've ever done. This training for schools is the most we've ever done. We've got a service level agreement with primary schools and 3 secondary schools. So we engage with them and take their kind of work very seriously. You have good take up e-learning. We have a solution called Meta Compliance, which enables us to push out little bits of content to all kind of IT users. Just little short videos that hopefully give them an insight into things that they maybe should do and things that they should avoid doing. We also are very much aware, it's not our only consideration, but we're very much aware of the cyber and the landscape and the concerns in relation to that. So we undertook a Welsh Government funded cyber breach workshop in March. That was well attended. And again, the better prepared we are for such things, the better we are as an organisation. We actually have a decrease in the number of security incidents. So when things go wrong and maybe an email goes to the wrong person, or some confidential files or paper is left in some place that it shouldn't be, we record all those as a team, get notified, we record those, and we will investigate each of those incidents. During this year, we've actually had a decrease in the number of incidents. To be honest, that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. We want people, going back to what Reece was saying about the transparency, don't want people to be hiding these things. If things go wrong, we need to be made aware of them. In the case of one incident, we actually referred it to the Information Commissioner's Office. We have a traditional kind of low reporting number over a number of years, which hopefully gives some confidence in the kind of processes we have in place. In the case of this incident, whilst we felt it reached the threshold to report to the Information Commissioner's Office, they actually took no action, and they did that pretty quickly. So that would give an indication that they were fairly satisfied with. Obviously, it was an issue, but they didn't see the severity as being that significant. We we've got loads of measures in place, and we've kind of explained that to committee in previous years, but we have been kind of supplementing those over the years. So over the last year or two, the SRS has implemented another solution called the Security Information Event Management System, which is designed to look at kind of logs of activity across the network and try and spot and prevent any kind of incidents before they happen. And there's also an organisation, the contract is actually with Vodafone, who provide a security operations centre, so they actually are proactively looking at those logs and notifying us when they see some strange activity. So we've got loads of measures in place. We're pretty much there, I think, in terms of our capabilities. We're always on the lookout, but I think we have had that enhanced by virtue of those kind of operations in place. Whilst this isn't specifically an information kind of governance risk, for a number of years we've reported on our kind of responses to information requests. So in relation to freedom of information requests, the number has gone up, and we're now back up to pre-pandemic levels. In terms of the performance, we were just below the target this year. So I think we've met the target in something like 10 of 13 years, but we were a couple of % below the target this year. Another thing that we measure in this report is and it's in our service plan too, is our subject access requests. So that's a request for personal data under the Data Protection Act. In this case, we've actually met the target the first year since we've been reporting it, and it's the best performance to date. So that's kind of hopefully a good note to finish on in terms of the improvements in that. So we have lots of measures in place, lots of training, we manage incidents, we look at the cyber landscape, we work very closely with the SRS, but we very much welcome your kind of questions and comments in relation to the content of this report.
Thank you. Members? I start off some points of clarification, I think, as much as questions. We very much welcome your executive report. We've commented on that previously. That's great. The FOIs, what sort of costs do we incur in all these FOIs? And would some of them be regarding the political nature rather than just trying to find out some information?
We can't differentiate in relation to our kind of responses. I suppose that's the first thing to say. So irrespective of the motives behind the request, we need to respond to them accordingly. We do obviously recognise the political nature of some of those, but like I said, that shouldn't affect our responses. In terms of the cost of these requests, I think we've explained before that if there is a time limit, we can place on excessive and the time to respond, sort of colloquially known as the 18-hour rule. So if it's going to go over 18 hours to produce a response, then we can turn it down. We have provided estimates in the past, and it's only an estimate based on the time to process a request at an average, how long they've taken, and the request we received. I think I'd be guessing slightly, but I think it was in the region of £25,000 to £30,000 per annum in terms of the cost of officers' time to do that. But obviously, it's a statutory requirement, so in that sense, part of those exemptions we have.
Thank you. Another thing that we've probed previously is attendances on courses and people using different databases. Social services jump out at me at the moment. Their number of attendances is going down over the years. And are they getting their training from a different source and recorded in a different way?
I think the answer to that is a lot of that is yes, in the sense of we do have a lot of people from social, and this I was talking to Terry about this earlier. We need to kind of clarify some of this and specify a bit better. So we do have a number of people from social services who are attending the corporate course, but we don't necessarily class them as social services in that regard. So that's kind of one factor that we need to take on board. The other factor, I guess, is going back. Obviously, during the COVID times, service delivery was a priority. in terms of going back historically quite a number of years, we did have an incident where the ICO did take some action, and in that regard, we had a specific focus on training and sort of catching up on training. So I'd like to think that we would be in a better position now, and we're not having to catch up than we do on a more regular basis.
It's not, sorry, it's no criticism of you at all, but if we can't give an accurate picture, don't we think we might be better to omit that data, because it doesn't reflect very well on the social services department.
Yeah, no, just to say, it does say for the corporate courses, I think it said say somewhere, doesn't it, like social services staff, on the corporate courses. We think we need that a bit clearer. I think it's also really important to say that I think how often we recommend staff do this, every 2 years, so it's not, you know, we wouldn't expect all of our 80 staff to go through this every year. So you think just sort of figure it out. So I think we need to be clear about it. I think it showed pretty good coverage.
I think the other thing I'd say, Chair, is that in relation to a lot of organisations will do it on a kind of e-learning basis. We do some e-learning, and that we think that is complementary. But you know, these are kind of classroom style training courses, which is quite a commitment on behalf of the organisation in terms of resource time. So yeah, I take on board in terms of the split, and yeah, we can look to improve that in terms of the presentation of that data.
I think it's specifically the social services course attendance. They are for those social service professionals without access to technology, so they can't do a Teams course. So we go out and put face-to-face sessions on for those professionals, and I think that's what those figures reflect. But as Mark said, we take your point, Chair, we can look at accurate social services figures for the
as I say, it's absolutely your report, but you know, if for whatever reason we can't provide accurate figures, it's better off making a statement rather than putting a draft. Very good. And the only other thing, and this is just pure interest, on page 23, some of the technical security trainings. I wonder what that was.
That's a good question. We detail the incidents, and we attempt to give a breakdown there. And again, we're trying to be as transparent as we can. We could just give kind of whole numbers, if you like, of the whole incident, but we try and provide a kind of split. I'm just trying to think what
it specifically would include.
technical security failing is with, for example, a system has failed, hasn't done what it's supposed to do, and there's been a breach or a potential breach. So it's technology failing as opposed to human error.
I think we had an instance of that, actually thinking about it, whereby the system was dealing with data in a particular way, and it wasn't structured properly. So therefore, in a sense, there wasn't any human error, if you like, but the inference was that there was a problem with a lot of that.
If you come back to Samantha in more detail,
we can certainly provide it, you know, a more detailed response to that. But that's the kind of gist of it. Is a system problem rather than a problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor James, sorry.
Oh, do you know?
Didn't realise you were with us.
Yeah, sorry, the Teams invite said 2:30, so I was expecting to be a few minutes late to the pre-meeting, and then I got here and you'd already started the actual meeting. So I do apologise for that. Yeah, on the subject access requests targets, I'm really glad to see us hitting target. I just wanted a bit more information on particularly complex subject access requests. So sort of like, what's the criteria for that? I imagine it depends on the situation. And when they are designated particularly complex. How long is the extension? And just wondering if, and that you may not be able to provide this information today, but how I would just like to know how many of the 134 subject access requests we received in the last year were indeed particularly complex ones and had an extension.
Mr. Blizzard has partly answered that question already, and I've talked to him about the type of requests that we're getting. But please, what do you?
Yeah, I'll kind of start off and I'll hand over to Tarek a little bit more into the timescale. In terms of the complex requests, they tend to be things like kind of records for children who've been in care previously and the like. So our most complicated request tends to be in the kind of social care space. So those would be the ones, you know, in many cases, although we've obviously got lots of digital records now, we have lots of historical paper records. So that provides a great challenge in regard to that. In terms of the timing, I'll probably hand over to Tarek to talk a little bit more about that.
The ICO guidance is that we can extend for a further 2 calendar months, but they do stress that not to use that if you can answer it earlier. So as early as possible, but you can extend it for further 2 months. So it is in total then it would be 3 months.
I mean, we should have the data. We haven't provided it here. We should have the data to identify which of those 130 odd where we've applied that. Anecdotally, I believe that's relatively small numbers, but we come back with you in terms of, you know, it's not 120, for instance, you know, from all I would imagine, but we, yeah, we can come back with an actual. Yeah.
You content?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm content. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
Not at the moment. I actually found I was much more pleased with this report than I was last year, and I noticed that you're contextualising information a little bit more. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Linton, do you have any questions?
No, I'm fine with the report at the minute. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then I'd actually come back then to the recommendation of the committee. We've got some comments.
So the actions I noted are for a more detailed response about technical security failings and for further data to identify the 104 out of the 104 which were extended. I think comments would be that Councillor James noted that she was pleased with the contextualisation within the report and the committee content with the report as it is. I think that's fair.
Yeah, we'll be happy with that, members.
Sorry, Chair, and certainly there was a comment about the training data as well. So we need to,
Yes, yeah.
clarify that.
I guess from our perspective, we very much welcome the try and improve it year on year, but with your help.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance this afternoon. Thank you very much all for coming along. Thank you. What's you wish to speak at the start, or you want to talk?
Well, I'll just say thank you very much for inviting us, and we look forward to hearing what you've got to say about the report. I think particularly pleasing is the buildings decarbonisation policy and the work that's been done there. And also particularly pleasing is the tree city status and the fantastic number of trees that we've planted in the last 3 years.
Just on the trees, if we have sites that we think might be suitable for tree planting, how do we go about requesting? Because we've still got the policy in place that we put in 2 trees for everyone, take down, I think, and we've also got had some grants in the past for additional tree planting.
Then the tree team and the countryside team would be, you know, the best placed for that.
The council's got specific
Yes.
areas, just send them into the head of service or to
Yes.
the members, you know.
So members team
they'll-
probably have
they'll
the
log-
best
they'll log
way, yeah, to log it.
Thank you very much. Please, indeed.
I don't want to do much of an introduction, I'm not going to name the team, but it's, you know, it's good to be back on this report. We've, you know, made really good progress over the last few years, but it's a massive challenge, isn't it? So although the graphs are all heading in the right direction, it starts to get harder and harder and harder now. So, but, you know, we've a very small climate change team, but they do some great work, as is outlined in this report. And we are leading Wales in a number of areas. The fleet electrification has been a huge success, but also the team has been really, really successful in attracting external funding. So we're getting far more than our fair share of funding into this decarbonisation work, and that's benefited Newport across the board. Just to highlight the sort of impact. It's not just about climate change. You know, the grants and the funding that we've attracted into our schools buildings have helped reduce the cost of operating the schools, and also meant, you know, modernise and upgrade schools that about this. So the team's done a really good job. Not everything is green. There's lots of ambers, a few reds, and I think that demonstrates the challenging work that they're doing. But overall, I think it's a pleasing report.
Yeah, just to comment on that one, I attended a meeting with your senior scientific officer this week, and he was telling us what he managed to achieve in terms of monitoring and going forward, which was great news.
And well, just briefly to add on to what Paul said, just to highlight, this is an organisational report, so it's mainly about what we've done within Newport City Council assets and you know, activities, although it touches upon a couple of external matters. And as Paul said, there's a number of ambers. The approach we've taken, I remember having a conversation about this when we presented the last year's report. You will see the report includes a summary per area, but then the appendix includes the full action plan with the detailed action and then the rather states for every action. So the approach we've taken is, you know, it's green if everything is green, or there's only one amber, if there's a couple of ambers, or there's red, it's going to be amber or red. And I think we've been quite strict, we've been quite serious, and we report in amber in some areas where progress has been good, but we are aware of the challenges and we know it's going to get harder and harder. So I don't think we've been complacent at all when we're, you know, assigning the status to the different actions. And I think overall we're showing great progress. As Paul mentioned, we're leading the way in Wales across a number of areas. We do much better than other councils, which again, we need to be careful not to get complacent, say, you know, we're doing better than others, because the challenge is very real. But I think, you know, we're showing great progress, especially considering the resources. And we've included a lot of specific information and case studies just to highlight, you know, the number of things we're doing across the board, high number, and I think very good outcomes as well, just to give a flavour and make the report a bit more readable, I guess, and make it real in terms of what the actual actions on the ground are. So, you know, the final thing is the carbon figures included here are last year's, because we don't have this year's figures yet. The reporting period comes at the end in September, so we will have an updated figure then, and the final report that goes for final approval will include updated figures, but they're just not available yet. We're quite confident that we are on target. The figures are going to be good, but are not available yet. And that's it, really. So it just open to questions, comments, etc.
Questions, then, please. Councillor James.
Hi, first of all, I wanted to say a massive thank you for including all of the information in this appendix, because I remember last time I had lots of questions about these points, and now I have hardly any, which is great. And I'm just really glad to see the progress that's being made. I mean, obviously the report does reference the fact that we've sort of hit all the low-hanging fruit now, and it's going to get a lot harder from here. But we've got a really good foundation to build that off. You know, most of these actions are green, which is really pleasing to see. One of the reds that I was sort of concerned about, and it does seem like a minor point, is this reviewing the democratic report templates. I can't imagine it's going to have a huge impact in terms of, you know, of kilograms of CO2 equivalent saved, but if the action point was in March, why are we still chasing for info now? And what's the sort of timeline for this now?
I'd say in fairness, obviously within that team, we've had a lot of turnover of staff. So obviously we've currently got an interim head of service. The head of service left and everyone is sort of acting up. And also they've had to deal with 2 elections. So kind of understandably their work profile is a little bit behind we would like, but we're confident we'll get that sorted. You know, I blame the former Prime Minister for calling the election perhaps, but I'm giving apology for that.
Did they have one election or was there another?
So
the
they had also the
PCCs.
crime commission.
Yeah.
So they've just gone sort of one to win, and obviously then that's delayed us appointing a permanent head of service because they've just been head down and all that works.
Yeah,
But
right.
we hope we'll progress that pretty soon.
Yeah, hopefully by September we'll have an update on that then. And actually, yeah, that was the only sort of like major point that stuck out at me, is like there's so much information on everything else that I already know everything that I would normally have asked about. So thank you so much for that, and well done on. It's very rare that I have a report that I go, oh, actually, this gives me all the information I want. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor James. Anyone else?
I haven't got a question, but the rainwater gatherings around the city.
They are, they're lovely. And that's a good example. For instance, if you go to the detailed action plan, we mark that as an amber, and then the overall action around the pocket parks and the city's amber. We're working on that. It's just the actual delivery was a bit delayed, and it's going to happen this year instead of last year. But it's work in progress, and sometimes when you want to deliver things on the ground, there's like delays linked to the actual installations and the like. So
I think question and maybe a comment. The reduction in costs in schools that have been fortunate enough to be subject to some greening initiatives. Maybe this is a question for Councillor Paulson. Is there any method of sharing these savings with other schools who are fortunate enough to have been given some green grants, whatever?
that's quite
Yes, there is, because the overall schools integrated budget is like an umbrella budget for all schools. I think it's an allocation for energy dependent on their need. So if their need or the usage of energy drops, effectively some of that budget can go back into the overall pot for other uses. There's an overall benefit to education.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's great. And on page 67, where you talk about the staff survey, and this is just anecdotal evidence really. When I worked for Avon County Council, not because of any good reason, but the technical staff decided to dispute over travelling costs, and they all decided to use public transport, which resulted in people who would have done maybe 4 jobs a day doing only 1 job a day, as they went off 2 bus routes and whatever, or in extreme circumstances used a taxi. And it's something to be mindful of, I think, when you do start to look at these things. But overall, the idea of people coming to work by public transport or better still by cycling or walking is to be uploaded.
Okay, so Linton wants to go on, Chair.
Councillor Winton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Just a point. Sorry, I'm flicking between the icons in the bottom. Regarding the RAG system, where you've got the where you've got red and amber, there's no figures because it says mixed progress. Majority of projects. How many? There's no like bullet points. How many projects it included and percentage or whatever failed it. So you've got 10 projects and you've only completed 5 or something. Just as a bullet point out of it. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I completely understand. So in the appendix of the report is the full project list. So what we could do is add some figures to the summary tables, which do give that information about the total number of projects and what status they achieved. And that will give a better explanation of the overall performance in the summary table, if that would answer your question.
Would it go in the beginning where we're on the amber where you've got, you see, as you come down green amber in your like vision 2030 or something, just put a little number in there just to it sort of stands out a bit in there rather than going. You could go into it more depth then if you could see what everybody's failing or whatever.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We could add a sort of percentage achieved or maybe a pie chart on there.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that'd be helpful. You could see it bullet point and just look straight away, rather than having to look through all the information. On the decarbonisation as well, I know with schools and the like, you're upgrading ground source heat pumps and etc. and solar panels. I think these ground source heat pumps are going more to the schools that they're more modern to in recent years rather against the 60s buildings where it might be more difficult to install. Would that be correct?
I think our initial phase is, yes, that would be correct. And that's in one respect around the ease of installation and sort of the lower risk you get with a modern building, because most of our modern buildings have things like underfloor heating that's more suitable for the heat pumps. So, you know, this is new to everyone. Not that much of this work has been done within schools in Wales. So we've started off with the first few on the newer buildings. But as we move into the next couple of years, especially next year, we do have funding for base leg comprehensive and Killing comprehensive. And they're going to be altogether different in terms of, you know, the challenge and the way we approach them. But they give us a lot of information about how we tackle the rest of those older buildings. We obviously have things to deal with like changing radiators, which is more disruptive, and obviously things like asbestos in buildings. So,
Yeah, exactly. And in the older buildings, 60s, you've got I don't know what grants or anything you'll get, what you're going to do to upgrade the curtain walling system, because there's greater heat loss through the walls, isn't it? For instance, Ringland, Milton, you're upgrading everything else. But the main source of heat loss is the makeup of the material, the U values on that. So you're losing it through the walls. So whatever we're upgrading, it's instantly going. I know it's more costly, but I don't know what you're doing to get over this problem with this curtain walling system.
You were saying was that some of the grants and the funding for traffic for next year is around the fabric as well, isn't it?
yeah,
So
that's correct.
replacing the glazing on older buildings to ensure that heat loss is lower, as well as the upgrading of the boilers. So, you know, there'll be fabric linked as well. As we get further down and into the more and more difficult ones, that'll be more and more of a challenge, won't they? Like, obviously, this building is.
We have to work on and look at the schools building program as well, you know, where there are sort of potential replacements. So we're not doing work that soon becomes obsolete in the next few years. So that is one route towards decarbonisation.
Councillor Linton, if you had a 1960s building in my ward, you would consider it modern.
Have you had plenty of solar again then, wouldn't you?
Going back to the RAG system, sometimes is the differentiation between amber and red a little fuzzy, and perhaps it's a little more difficult to put a precise number on it.
It is quite difficult to put things like number. I think the justification for some of the reds is the project has just started yet. You know, nothing's happened at all. Whereas the silver said, I think we've been quite harsh on some of those which are amber. I think projects which are 80% complete didn't quite get there. So I do see quite a line between the reds.
Okay, thank you.
We'll make that clear.
Right, anybody else, please?
Can I just make a
Of course, Councillor Bolton.
One huge area, of course, is reducing the carbon in our procurement. So, you know, it's good that progress has been made on that. But the other point I wanted to make really was one of our objectives is to get all of our councillors to be carbon literate, and the carbon literacy training, which has been offered. I think quite a few councillors have taken it up, but it would be really nice to see more commitment to take up that carbon literacy training from my colleagues, and particularly councillors from other parties who are somewhat lacking in that training.
I did point out last year when we talked about this that I tried to get on a couple of courses and they were reserved for officers at the time. And in all honesty, I should know as much as I need to know about carbon literacy, but I'd be pleased to get on the course.
I think we're looking at offering some more training for councillors. Obviously, if people have already got good understanding, that's fine. Had you been sitting here going, I don't know what you're doing this stuff for, I would challenge your understanding. Does that put it succinctly?
Yes, indeed. Right. All done. Thank you very much. Right. We can have to consider if the information submitted is adequate, and I think Councillor James led on that, and you certainly feel it is adequate. The review against the 6 delivery themes, again, after we've had this little discussion now about red on the theme, I think that's going fairly well, unless everybody wants to contradict me. And we've got some comments that we're going to.
Yeah, sure. Can you help if I run through what I've got in it?
Yes, please.
So you've got Councillor Linton's point about adding figures to the summary tables about total numbers and statuses of actions. And I've coupled that up with your point here about making sure that it's clear in the difference between reds and amber actions. I've got it noted that committee are pleased with the improvement in the report following the previous feedback from scrutiny, where Councillor James said about finding more information and not having to ask so many questions. And overall, the committee content with the report.
Yes, indeed we are, and thank you very much for your attendance this afternoon.
Thank you, James.
Okay, that brings us to the scrutiny officer's reports,
Yeah, if you're happy for me to volunteer.
please.
First start with actions. We've got a few outstanding actions I am chasing from the corporate safeguarding annual report. And I know there's one from the scrutiny report, but I know that the work is ongoing to get that to you as soon as we can. Looking at the forward work programme then, there's one item that's been added to our 25th of October meeting, which is the anti-poverty strategic plan. I know we've still got a handful of empty meetings, but we can look to cancel those close to the time if committee feel that that's necessary. And if there's anything added, obviously, I'll let you know. This is the first time we've seen our outcomes table with responses from officers in it. We've got responses from Tracy McKim about the Welsh language report, which you'll be able to see as Appendix 3 against the Scrutiny Advisors Report item. And just to sort of update you on the Welsh language report, it's now published in draft on the website and it's going to be considered by Cabinet this month. So that's sort of the path to that. There was one outcome within the table about the Scrutiny Annual Report, and I do have a verbal update to give committee about that, which is that work is ongoing to increase public engagement with a visibility of scrutiny, which includes training for scrutiny members to explain their role in promoting the scrutiny function and how the public can engage with scrutiny. In addition, members will be provided with a monthly update of outcomes of meetings that have been held and further meetings that are scheduled for the month ahead. So they are more aware of work ongoing across all scrutiny and governance committees and can inform the public. Furthermore, we will be promoting scrutiny and other democratic meetings on social media and monitoring viewership of meeting recordings. Other engagement methods to enhance existing arrangements have included shared updates at ward meetings that included a session on budget consultation. And the participation strategy is an evolving document that continues to be developed over time to increase engagement and participation. So that's the response to that outcome from the Scrutiny Annual Report.
If I might. Councillor Cox in Democratic Services was particularly keen on drilling down, seeing how it became more relevant to the general public engagement.
I think it's all links in with participation strategy and the work we're doing to engage with the public more.
And I'm particularly keen to go and have a look at the poverty report now in October by the council's anti-poverty champion, and it's something I welcome. That's come from a report now, and hopefully a strategy we can agree.
Absolutely. And our next meeting now will be the 26th of July, back to a normal time at 10 AM. And that's for the digital strategy annual report and the annual the adaptation policy. That isn't quite right in your forward work, and I'm not too sure how that's happened, but it will be the adaptation policy and digital strategy annual report for our next meeting. That's all from me, Chair.
Any other business or any other comments? No, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Chair. Bye all.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chair.